So it brings us to our next panel, and the next panel is one of the hot topic in our industry at the moment, eSIM and travel eSIM. And this is going to change the wholesale roaming business completely, I think, in the next few years. So it's important for wholesalers to understand how is that going to impact their business, what's the opportunity, what's the risk that comes with that. And to do that, who better than to do that than Nitin Bhas is Chief Strategy and Insight Officer at Kaleido. Nitin, welcome.
Thank you, Isabel. Pleasure to be here today.
So Nitin, I'll leave the floor to you, and you can start inviting your victims.
Thank you, Isabel. Thank you. Great. A very warm welcome to everyone to today's panel discussion on wholesale roaming strategies, maximizing revenues in the 5G and eSIM era. Firstly, I'm Nitin Bhas. I head up the wholesale and roaming research team and analyst team here at Kaleido Intelligence. And today, and as we look ahead to 2025, I believe wholesale roaming is at a critical point in the sense that we are expecting the first launches of 5G standalone roaming, which is expected to reshape the roaming dynamics. We're seeing, as Isabel just mentioned, how travel eSIMs are changing the consumer or traveler behavior. We're also looking at new wholesale models that are emerging for enterprise and IoT use cases. I'm joined by an outstanding panel of industry experts who will help us understand these changes, this shift that's happening in the roaming industry, uncover what this means for the industry, the opportunities, and also discuss some of the strategies or for our audience to maximize revenues from these new and emerging services such as travel eSIMs, and also to understand this evolving landscape in a much better way. So let me quickly introduce and bring our panel members onto the session. Firstly, we have Emmanuel Bain, who is Senior VP at Console Connect, in charge of IoT, mobility, and cloud strategies. Welcome, Emmanuel. Great to have you with us today.
Thank you, Nitin.
Great. Now we have Gregory Gundelfinger. Greg is the CEO and founder at Telna, and as one of the leading distributors of IoT and travel eSIMs, I think it's great to have your input today, Greg. So welcome.
Thank you, Nitin. Hi, Emmanuel.
Hi, Greg.
We are now joined by Aymeric Castelain from Orange Wholesale. Aymeric is head of roaming and messaging at Orange Wholesale International. I think I've been working with Aymeric for many roaming topics, and I believe he's an excellent addition to this panel session today. So welcome, Aymeric. Thanks for joining us.
Hi. Hello, everyone.
Great. Finally, last but not least, we have the man himself, Gabriel Salvate from BICS. Gabriel heads up customer solutions at BICS across messaging, IoT, travel mobility, private network security. It's endless. We're really excited to have you on board today, Gabriel. Welcome.
Thank you very much, and welcome, everyone.
Great. Guys, again, thanks for joining us. I'm going to follow our host Isabel's lead. And why don't we begin by setting the stage with a quick fire question for all our panelists? So, keep it short, guys. We'll expand on each trend shortly. But let's start with, what do you see as the biggest trend or a disruption in roaming in 2025? Gabriel, I'll start with you.
Yeah, well, for me, it's eSIM. For sure, it's the number one. It's a mindset change. There are a lot of things happening in this market, and for sure, we will cover a lot during this session.
Great. Aymeric?
Yeah, for sure. We'll talk about eSIM, but I think that resilience will also be a really big topic in the next following months and years for all wholesaler and all MNOs. So eSIM for sure, and resilience.
Yeah, good. And Greg?
Yeah, I mean, eSIM is definitely the most exciting thing to happen in our industry for a long time. So I don't think anything else can be compared to the transformation that we're experiencing, the disruption, and what we're seeing in travel eSIM, I think, is only the start of what the impact is going to be.
Understood. And Emmanuel, finally?
Yeah, I fully agree with the rest of the panel. It's a revolution, and what's been interesting this year is to see the new flavors that are coming, the new features, how this is now getting into super apps, into into the travel industry itself, revolutionizing the travel industry itself.
Yeah. I think it's we have a clear winner, travel eSIM. So we'll dig a bit deeper into travel eSIM, but in the roaming industry per se, we've seen how some of the recent trends, for example, 5G roaming or IoT roaming, the migration towards VoLTE roaming and other next generation roaming services, implementing BCE, trying to identify those use cases that will drive roaming revenues going forward. There's a lot of discussion around that. Greg, my question for you is there a need to rethink wholesale roaming strategies for the 5G era? Given that, we are migrating to all these new technologies and new generations and investing in those new use cases.
Definitely. Look, for us, 5G represents the digital transformation of telecoms, and eSIM is really the tangible part of what we can actually understand as a product. But actually, it's a full end-to-end virtualization and digitalization of the core network, the ability for the network to scale up, scale down. But there's a cost to it, and there's a huge disruption that is taking place in terms of different opportunities that eSIM is impacting, that is disrupting different spaces. And we saw this in IoT, we saw this in SMS when we spoke on the panel before. I was listening in on that. Roaming is a technology that enables mobile network operators to standardize the way in which they are handing traffic to each other. And we saw this as being a foundation for innovation. And so with IoT, there were startups that came into the space that used roaming as an enablement technology to give the enterprise a single integration that gave them access to every single network, but they were able to differentiate themselves in terms of how the enterprise could manage their SIM cards no matter where they went. The same with SMS. The enterprise wanted a single integration to be able to send SMSs, and roaming was the technology that standardized the way in which this traffic was handled by mobile network operators globally. And so we're seeing the same with travel eSIM, and we're seeing the same with other IoT expansions of eSIM technology. So I think, yes, I think that like those other technologies, there's going to be an evolution in terms of the commercial relationship on what networks are prepared to receive this traffic and what are those conditions and what are the technical requirements that must be adhered to. Some networks will be open to it, as we've seen with IoT and with SMS, and some networks won't be open to it. But I think it's an evolution that will take place within the commercial landscape of roaming, and it's a maturity that we will go through as an industry. It's growing very quickly, faster than anything else we've seen, but it's innovation and it's exciting.
Yeah. And Emmanuel, do you agree with what Greg just said? Is there really a need to rethink the wholesale strategies, also from a new use cases perspective?
Yeah, definitely. There's a need for investment into automation, because at the end of the day, there's a lot of competition, and there is, with wholesale, you always have the risk of commoditization. So in order to adapt, you need to have the billing platforms, the flexibility to invoice and to segment your markets correctly in order to address the different use cases. And for mobile operators, they also are protecting existing revenues. So segmenting correctly in order not to avoid cannibalization while enabling new use cases for them is key.
And transparency. I mean, creating that transparency, once that commercial structure is in place, all those technical aspects will enable for that to be much more transparent.
Yeah. And then thereby reducing complexity for roaming services. One of the other key questions we always get asked is, we've been talking about 5G standalone roaming on the verge of commercial rollout for many years now. But we're almost there. We're expecting commercial service to be rolled out this year. But when it comes to use cases, there's a lot of discussion around slicing or private networks. But for our audience, guys, what's the key revenue driving roaming use case when it comes to 5G for operators over the next 3 to 5 years? What should the focus be on? Aymeric, I'm going to bring you in on this first.
It's a $1 billion question. What is the the big use case, and what is the main one? It's always very hard for a telco, for MNO to anticipate the use case of our own network. And maybe some of us remember that on 3G, we sold 3G on video calls. Maybe you know that 20 years ago almost. So as a wholesaler, what we need to do is to set up the ecosystem to be sure that everyone in this ecosystem can build great use cases. But to be more specific, IoT is there really, and the main use case that I see is really IoT. The traffic is growing. We see a lot of connected IoTs, connected cars, a lot of connected industry, and 5G will allow low latency massification of this. So really, to me, the main use case that we'll see in the following years will be on IoT for 5G SA, because these are the industry and the place where we need the performance of 5G SA.
Yeah, great. Gabriel, I think BICS are trialing quite a few 5G standalone roaming use cases and slicing. What are your thoughts on it?
Yeah, that's I like the $1 billion question, and to be honest, there are a few things we are taking in consideration on our side. So what MNOs have been looking for over the past years, it's about number of devices, billions of devices connected. So that's the most efficient way to monetize that. So I would say low power wide area networks, for sure, it's one of the major drivers for the development on massive IoT. I believe the second one certainly is the critical communications. When you support when you have an infrastructure supporting high performance, low latency applications, especially now everyone is talking about autonomous vehicles, healthcare devices. You see, that's the way the technology will allow civil enterprise to be on the field, developing different types of solutions, and not only from the infrastructure perspective, but you will have millions of devices connected to the network, and of course you will need to manage and that's it. So that's the way we see the revenue driving coming to over the next years.
Great, excellent. I think we've set the stage nicely, and you've all picked up the biggest and one of the key hot topics, that is travel eSIM. And I think at MEF we discussed this at the Global Forum earlier in Barcelona this year as well. So I want to dig a bit deeper into this, and I think we are already getting some questions from our audience on travel eSIM. So let's dig a bit deeper into this. All of you guys, all our panelists today are enabling travel eSIM providers in some shape or form. But the question that I want to ask you is, what's your take on this growing influence that these providers, for example, an Airalo or a UBG or a Wholesale, are having on the roaming, in the roaming or travel connectivity market? Back in 2022, I think it was in Croatia when Kaleido presented a session to the MNO audience on travel eSIMs. We had mixed feedback. We had one of the biggest travel eSIM enablers today, one of the key guys from the company, come to us and says operators could just kill off travel eSIMs in a second by changing their retail proposition. Fast forward 2-3 years, we still we've changed our mindsets. Operators are increasingly working with these guys. So the question is, how do you see these providers changing the travel connectivity landscape? Emmanuel, I'll start with you first on that.
Well, first, I think they are helping generate awareness, because they're investing huge amounts of marketing money, especially in digital media and social media. And so they're helping with the awareness. So that's the first very important thing. There's lots of investment there. And they're helping not only on the awareness of the travel SIM, but also on the eSIM itself. a lot of people don't know their phones are eSIM enabled, and they start the journey of traveling to one place, getting one eSIM, and so that's influencing the way people behave, and then it also leads to more eSIM being installed long term on phones. And the travel eSIM is, I don't like the name travel eSIM, because in fact it's not only for travel. For a lot of people, these SIMs become a secondary SIM for backup purposes or for coverage purposes, and it's actually enabling more than travel use cases. And so they're creating all this awareness. They influence the way roaming is now sold. So they do influence the pricing on the traditional roaming, because operators had to react. They even influence operators themselves to launch their own travel SIM sub-brand or in partnership with other players. So they have a huge influence on how the industry is evolving, and they also come up with a lot of new potential features in terms of transferring credit, being embedded in super apps, even coming up with value-added services on top of the connectivity itself, because the connectivity is a cutthroat market. And they are already facing this issue of having high marketing spend to acquire the customers, but difficult to retain them, because travel eSIM is by definition a very competitive market. So they need to come up with additional features, localized content that are relevant for the users. And I think that's very exciting.
Yeah, and I completely agree. I think it's just beyond offering that basic connectivity. It's adding those value-added services on top of it and expanding. Gabriel, we see BICS partnering with a wide range of travel eSIM providers. How do you see this? Do you agree with Emmanuel?
I agree 100%. There is just one thing I would like to add. So for me, it's a mindset change. So, and a good example is, it's my mom. So now every time she's traveling, she's not looking for Wi-Fi anymore. She texts me and she asks, what app should I download? What is the cheapest one? You see? So this is really changing how people act. So that's one important thing to be highlighted here. And the second one, when we are looking for the, let's say, MNO, MVNO perspective, I believe this forces us to become innovative, to adapt our strategy. You see, it's what would be the best way to serve these guys? What is the best way to integrate our solutions with their solutions? How we can help them to monitor what is happening, and when not only from the technology perspective, but for the eSIM adoption in the specific markets. What are the best or the most effective revenue models? You see, there are a lot of things you need to take in consideration, and I believe from our side, as MNO, MVNO, that's the value we bring to the market. So we need to really adapt ourselves in order to be and to stay competitive, serving this market properly.
Yeah, and that's very interesting and exciting. The mindset change and the increase in awareness. We run this travel survey every year, and we are seeing that increasing awareness amongst the traveler community. So let's dive into it a bit more, guys. So it's evident that what we are seeing now is an eSIM-driven travel connectivity or roaming behavioral evolution, if I may put it that way. Aymeric, I'm going to bring you in. A question for you is, now that you're seeing the roaming behavior revolving around an eSIM model, how should roaming from an MNO perspective evolve to account for this travel behavior, considering the fact that travel eSIM at the end of the day is also, to an extent, a competition for the retail business units?
Yeah, I do remember in Croatia the eSIM was looked as something a bit strange, a bit dangerous. So now everyone is talking about it, and you know what it brings, travel eSIM? It brings the connectivity to the travel experience. So now you can propose to a customer to resume its digital life on any travel-related activity via hotels, airline company, bankings, any company that is part of the travel experience can propose something here about can propose connectivity now. So really, the golden nugget of roaming was always the silent roamers, and travel eSIM is the way to get them. And now everything is about distribution. Where do you detect your customer? Where is the behavior? Where part of the travel experience? Where can you be? So for me, travel eSIM is mostly distribution and the way to detect the best moment where you can sell this connectivity to the customer. So for sure, it changed a lot the way we manage connectivity, because usually we should, the MNO were the only provider of connectivity. It's went through their channel, could be digital or retail store. Now it's really different. It's other players that are managing connectivity. So for me, it's really why it's becoming a big trend in wholesale, because it's a wholesale market now.
Yeah. And Greg, do you agree with what Aymeric just said? Perhaps, the opportunity here is monetizing those silent roamers, as Aymeric pointed out, via the flexibility of travel eSIM. Do you see this as an opportunity for the MNOs?
Definitely, it's a massive opportunity. To date, roaming revenues have come reciprocally from a limited amount of counterparties. What this has done is it has added the amount of new inbound roaming counterparties that can generate new accretive revenue to mobile network operators. So, when you look at some of these MVNOs, these global MVNOs, they are now the size of some mobile network operators in terms of traffic. And so mobile network operators now have an opportunity to enable new roaming partners to utilize their infrastructure for new revenue and to unlock the value of silent roamers. The whole opportunity, ever since I entered the roaming industry, was how to unlock the silent roamers. We did lots of different things to try and do that, mostly largely unsuccessful, from welcome SMS to lowering and standardizing roaming rates. People still have a huge fear about turning roaming on, but travel eSIM is something that consumers have felt they have full control over. They feel that it's totally convenient, and it's having a huge impact to our industry. So I think for the mobile network operators, they need to have a platform to be able to support these mobile network operators and negotiate and enable them as they do regular roaming agreements. Most of these MVNOs are what we would refer to in our industry as light MVNOs. They can't interconnect through the different telecom protocols that we have. And so there's a requirement which Telna is providing to give a fully managed platform to enable these these MVNOs to access these mobile network operators, and for them to be able to have a much broader distribution that is not just limited to mobile network operators, now expanding to MVNOs, super apps, airlines. The opportunity for travel eSIM is just enormous.
Yeah, and I think that's right there the takeaway for the mobile network operators. But just because, Greg, you mentioned opportunities, I'm going to bring you back in on to answer this audience question, and I'll extend this to the others as well. The question we have is the opportunity. Is there a travel eSIM opportunity in local markets in Asia, for example? Are there any specific use cases for MVNOs, for example, targeting those large migrant worker community in Asia with eSIM, with travel eSIM? I think there is a great opportunity, but I'll let you add to that, Greg, first.
Yeah, absolutely. What we're seeing is that travel eSIM was largely dominated by Apple devices. So the penetration of Apple devices, because they introduced eSIM very early on and pioneered eSIM in all of their devices means that today a lot of the travel eSIM users, a majority, are using Apple devices. What we're seeing is the Android ecosystem is now adopting eSIM. And it started off by just the high-end devices, that were adopting eSIM. But now, in 2024, we started to see the mid and low-tier Android devices start to adopt eSIM capabilities. So I think that that together with the fact that Asia is opening up and much more Android dominant from an eSIM perspective means that it's a huge opportunity. Migrant workers and these types of people have always struggled with connectivity, and for the most part been totally excluded from the convenience of postpaid roaming. And so I think that eSIM roaming would unlock a huge opportunity for the global prepaid roaming space in a way in which they've never been provided with a solution, and this is going to be very accretive to our industry.
Gabriel, Aymeric, do you want to add to that? BICS and Orange working with some of these MVNOs in these markets? Anything to add there?
Yeah, for sure. Here, really, it's a distribution also point. So how can you distribute the product, the eSIM, to the end customer? And really, in this case, as an MVNO, you need to differentiate and communicate to find the best place where you can get those leads and those customers. So really, it's a distribution point.
Yeah.
I agree 100%.
Great. The next question I have for you guys is a bit controversial because as Aymeric just mentioned, since Croatia, we have seen how the wholesale community, they've come together. They're distributing eSIMs at the GSM Awards event. We've come a long way, but a key question that we keep getting asked over the last, I say, 6 to 12 months is that, again, going back to the initial point of travel eSIMs are a short-term trend. This will not exist in, let's say, next 3 to 5 years. Do you guys agree with it or not, and why? And I'll start with you, Gabriel.
Well, I will do some certain level of advertisement here because I'm a big fan of Kaleido reports, and you guys brought some interesting data that I would like to share here. So I don't remember, so I will read that. So by 2028, it's projected that around 72% of total cell phones in the market will support eSIM. So it's answered. So it's for sure it's not a short-term technology. So you see more and more companies adopting this technology. So I truly believe this will continue during the next years.
Yeah, good. Emmanuel?
Well, you have to differentiate eSIM and travel eSIM, but I think for travel eSIM, it's there to stay. Now, I think it will evolve in the sense that you've got new players, new apps coming every day. So I think that market is going to mature and to consolidate over time because there's a price war that is ongoing. So not everybody will survive, only the strongest. Those who've managed to get a loyal customer base will survive, and those who've developed the right features in order to create that ecosystem effect, in order to maintain the customer base, because there is only 1 or 2 eSIM you can have simultaneously on your phone, so you can easily be swapped out. So having that stickiness is going to be key to survive over time. But there's lots of opportunities, but I haven't seen so many new players coming in the market in such a short time frame, which means there will definitely be consolidation on the way.
May I add something here, because it's a fair comment on the travel eSIM versus eSIM. But when we are talking about eSIM, if you go to an IoT environment, we have the SGP 3132 coming. So this is again, showing and emphasize how the technology is becoming strong. Of course, the pricing pressure on travel is something that we need to take into consideration. It's fair to say the war is here, but it's normal in this market. So I've been working on this for the last 15 years, and we see a huge competition on the connectivity space. But again, it's not only about the price and etc. So it's about the platform, how the platform works, how the service, how exactly the services that will be provided to customers, etc. etc. But again, we cannot forget about the SGP 3132 on IoT devices. This is for sure be another disruptive technology in that space.
I think also something to consider is the wholesale, the wholesale dynamics, the complexity in those agreements. Different networks have different terms of use and different commercial terms. So a network that's in Europe will have a different rate to send and receive traffic, and European networks than an African network to a European network. eSIM has enabled the standardization of those rates for consumers, and also, which we haven't even seen, for enterprise. So think of multinational companies that have employees all over the world that are submitting for reimbursements for roaming utilization, and all the different costs that they've been charged for employees that come from Africa or from Asia to America. And so eSIM is a way for us to be able to standardize those costs, and for us to be able to allow for the complexity in those commercial agreements to be addressed. So I think that it's definitely here to stay, and I think I'll even go further. I think we're really at the beginning. I think it's really early days. I think right now it's not been done in a very organized, transparent way. I think there's a maturity that needs to take place, which will bring price stability to the market. When mobile network operators have platforms and are engaging with the market directly, I think that's when we will start to see a lot more value being unlocked. Mobile network operators will also be launching their own travel eSIM solutions. So I think that working with the super apps, working with the airlines, working with all these distribution points presents a huge opportunity for the mobile network operators, and it's going to effectively bring them to a point where they are going to have platforms to support this the same way that they support regular roaming.
Great. And Greg, thank you, because I think you've answered our second audience question on why travel eSIM worked and how it worked and how did it develop so fast compared to other tech. So thank you for that. Aymeric, short-term, long-term trend, agree with the others? Yes.
I agree with most of the panelists here, but the technology is definitely here to stay. So no question here. But for sure, it's really the beginning here. And we see the explosion of provider, and the market will mature. The value chain also is getting a bit complicating. When you see a roaming portfolio, for example, from bilaterals to hubs to sponsor to travel eSIM, who is selling to who, then reselling to another. So I'm pretty sure that the market will evolve and mature. But also we need to remember that we still have postpaid MNOs, and if you look at the market in Europe, for example, the penetration of travel eSIM is way lower because we have a low home like at home. So for example, if you take a region, if the regulation or market decide to switch to a home like at home model, it just makes the travel eSIM really less relevant in this market, especially for the people living in this geography. So really, there could be also some disruptive change in the eSIM market in the following years. Yeah.
Great. Aymeric, thank you so much. And everyone else, guys, pleasure having you today. I think that's been a very insightful discussion. From my perspective, I think it is clear that success in wholesale roaming will require, as you guys have rightly put it, a mix of technological innovation, a bit of collaboration, and also, more importantly, adaptability to these changing technologies and ecosystems. So thank you again for joining us today. I'm sure the audience enjoyed our session. And until next time, it's goodbye from us. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.